Allow me to demonstrate.
Hey guys, it's the Byleth 5, and as more Smash Bros. Ultimate DLC characters are planned for the future, the amount of speculation for who those characters may be or who people want to see has not died down in the slightest. This brought me back to thinking of my own ideas for potential DLC characters and how they could work, much like what I did back when Ultimate was first teased. I do hope that the second set of DLC contains some first-party characters, not that there's anything wrong with third-party ones, but there are a number of first-party characters who I think are deserving of getting their chance at Smash Bros. Amongst the various characters I thought of, one that resonated with me the most for their own various reasons was Byleth from Fire Emblem Three Houses. I actually really want to see Byleth get added as DLC. And out of all my desired characters, is probably the one with the best chance of getting in due to Smash Bros. Obsession with Fire Emblem characters, as well as Three Houses' massive success and popularity. However, because of that first point, I can easily imagine tons of people getting outraged, as Byleth would be another Fire Emblem character and another anime sword fighter. But I know that Byleth has the potential to be a unique character that differentiates from those who fall into the same category. This is because of the properties held by Byleth's signature sword, the Sword of the Creator. This is a sword with the functionality to extend its length to act like a whip. Think Ivy's sword from Soul Calibur. So to put it simply, Byleth would be a combination of the standard Fire Emblem sword fighters and the Belmonts. Yet there can be plenty more to Byleth's abilities than just that. So I want to make the case for what we could see if Byleth was to get into Ultimate as DLC. I'm definitely not the first person to make a video on this topic, but I still felt like throwing my hat into the ring with all the ideas I came up with. I'll explain my mindset for my ideas when covering them throughout this video. So the only thing I need to make note of here is that for the remainder of this video, I'll be referring to Byleth as he, for simplicity purposes, as I choose to play as male Byleth in Three Houses. Obviously, female Byleth would be available as an alternate costume, her weird tights included, like with Robin and Corrin, but the male would most likely be the default, as is the case with them. Also, there are going to be a few spoilers for Three Houses in this video, but nothing that happens after the time skip. Now, here is everything I thought of for if Byleth was in Smash Bros. First, I need to cover the most important aspect of any Smash Bros. Character, the moveset. In terms of his stats, I see Byleth as being slightly heavier than a mid-weight character. So he would be a tiny bit on the slow side, as a trade-off for the greater range a lot of his attacks will cover thanks to the Sword of the Creator. Due to the sword's capabilities, Byleth could have a tether grab in which he extends its length in a straight line, like how he tried to attack Kronya. If the sword touches an opponent, then it will wrap around them and Byleth will pull them towards him. Byleth would have a standard jab that composes of 3 simple sword swings, with the last hit having longer range compared to the other Fire Emblem sword fighters, though not that much in this instance. Though for the tilts, I'm really bad at thinking of ideas for these for any character, as all I can come up with is generic attacks that aren't based on anything. The same goes for the throws and aerials. So all I would say here is Byleth would just perform basic sword swings in the respective tilt direction, with some of them having the Sword of the Creator extend its length. The only actual idea I had was for the forward tilt, which won't be a sword swing. In Byleth's critical hit animation, when using a regular sword in his Enlightened One class, he proper backhands the opponent before hitting them with the weapon. So for the forward tilt, he would do this very same backhand, where, like in the animation, the struck opponent will be staggered briefly to open up a small window for a follow-up attack if the player can pull it off fast enough. So for the A-button attacks that I have a far better time thinking of ideas for, I move on to the possible smash attacks. All of these attacks will involve Byleth extending the Sword of the Creator's length for greater reach. His side smash would be a single horizontal slash, much like the side smashes of the other Fire Emblem sword fighters, but with that longer reach, using the exact same animation when using combat arts with the sword like Wrath Strike. The distance this attack would cover would be about the same as Simon and Richter's side smashes. if not then a tiny bit more. However, this attack would have a lot of ending lag, as Byleth needs to retract the sword back to its standard length, leaving him open to opponents' attacks should he miss. For the up smash, I thought of something a bit different compared to what we normally see. This is an up smash that would hit both sides of Byleth as he swings the extended sword in an arc over his head, starting from the ground on his left and ending at the ground to his right. It is much akin to what you see from some anti-air moves in traditional fighting games, but with the additional property of being able to potentially hit opponents who are standing to the very left or right of him. But this attack would also have noticeable end lag. Lastly, for the down smash, as the up smash has the properties you would normally see for this move, I thought of something a bit different here. Byleth will extend the sword's length and slide it along the ground, dealing damage to any opponents in its way. Then, he will immediately pull it back, causing any opponent standing on the ground the sword is lying over to trip. This is kind of like Zero Suit Samus's down smash, where it's more focused on stunning the opponent rather than dealing knockback, with this attack having the least amount of end lag out of all of Byleth's smash attacks. Once an opponent has tripped from the down smash, they become vulnerable to another attack. The best option would be to hit them with a side smash as a good killing combo. If the player is fast enough, then they can perform this sort of combo successfully, but if the opponent is fast enough, then they can dodge out of the way before being struck by the follow-up attack. Now it's time for probably the biggest part of the whole moveset, and the bit my ideas end up going into the most. The special moves. For Byleth's standard special, I thought of something that's a bit more out there, but really helps show how Byleth can become an even more unique character. Upon promoting to the Enlightened One class, Byleth gains the ability to use magic. So in his standard special, he would use Reason Magic, the type of magic from Three Houses that is entirely offensive based. I'm not entirely sure which specific magic attack he could use. It could be fire, it could be wind, probably one of those two. The point being that it would be a simple projectile that would travel horizontally. The projectile speed would be slower compared to the likes of Robin's standard thunder, but in exchange it would have a bigger hitbox. I was thinking something along the lines of a bit smaller than Mega Man's charge shot. This would act as a way for Byleth to throw mix-ups into the middle of combos or to prevent opponents from rushing towards him. For the side special, I was left a bit stumped trying to think of good ideas for a long time. I didn't want it to be a generic copy-paste of Dancing Blade, since I know Byleth has more potential than that. But I struggled to find something that would make sense as a side special. So I decided to take some creative liberty, and take something from another wielder of the Sword of the Creator, Nemesis. In the opening cutscene, Nemesis performs an attack where he swings the Sword of the Creator along the ground for its energy to create a sort of shockwave. Byleth's side special can have him perform a weaker version of this technique. Upon inputting the move, Byleth will point the Sword of the Creator diagonally downward. Then the sword will start extending until its tip touches the ground or a wall. It will deal a very small amount of damage to opponents who touch the sword during this period. Afterwards, a burst of lightning-like energy will appear around the sword's tip to deal several hits to any opponent caught in it, with some small knockback at the end. This is a way for Byleth to rack up damage in one attack. For Byleth's up special, I'm going back to the Enlightened One crit animation I brought up earlier, as after backhanding the enemy, Byleth does an upward slash while backflipping to strike them. In Smash Bros, he would perform the jumping backflip to recover, while slashing with his sword in a crescent shape in front of him. The slash itself would start from his feet, then a very large vertical area in front of him, and end shortly after it goes directly above his head. Then he would enter freefall. This is similar to Marth's Dolphin Slash, but with it covering far more vertical distance, yet traveling over less horizontal distance. It's comparable to Luigi's version of the Super Jump Punch. I even thought of it having the same effect of dealing high vertical knockback when the move is used right next to the opponent, though not as strong in Byleth's case. Finally, there is the down special. Again, I didn't want to be boring and just give Byleth a counter like all the Fire Emblem characters aside from Robin. So I settled on expanding on something the Sword of the Creator was briefly shown to be capable of. In the cutscene where Byleth first gets the sword, the Those Who Slither in the Dark mage shoots fire magic at Byleth, which gets absorbed by the sword for it to start glowing, or enter its 1000-degree knife form, as I like to call it. This would act as a combination of Joker's Rebel's Guard and Incineroar's Revenge. Inputting the down special will cause Byleth to enter a parrying stance for a short period of time. While in this stance, all projectiles will be nullified, and physical attacks will deal less damage. These attacks will be absorbed by the Sword of the Creator, as signified by it glowing, which will cause it to become stronger, with levels based on how much damage it absorbed, though there will be a cap. After this move, the next time Byleth uses a smash attack, his side special or up special, it will deal more damage and knockback. Again, based on what level its strength is currently at. This too can be signified by the sword glowing brighter than what it usually does during attacks. After one of these powered up moves are used, the Sword of the Creator goes back to its default strength, with it no longer glowing when idle and glowing at its normal brightness during attacks. This gives Byleth both a potential comeback mechanic as well as a risk versus reward feature, as you can end up taking more damage, but with a greater chance of killing your opponent as long as you hit them with that powered up move. Also, the down special won't be a one and done thing. You can use it multiple times to try and increase its power level if you're feeling lucky. There is one ability Byleth possesses that you may have noticed is absent from this moveset: Divine Pulse. I did consider including this, but I couldn't find a good way to implement time travel into a character's moves. The only decent thing I could think of was making it a teleportation recover that would send Byleth back to wherever he was a few seconds ago. But I think that would be really awkward to use, as it would require the player to know where exactly they were then to use it effectively. Fortunately, there is another trait belonging to Byleth that did manage to work its way in: the Crest of Flames. I felt this was a very important thing to include, as it's strongly tied to Byleth's character, in addition to the crest mechanic being one of the new features in Free Houses. What I ultimately decided on how to implement it was for it to work as it does in the original game. Whenever Byleth hits an opponent with any of his moves, there is a small chance that he can recover health equal to a fraction of the damage he dealt to the opponent. I had concerns that the random chance aspect of this would make people think it's broken, like how people argue heroes should be banned, but then I realized that there is a lot of RNG in Smash Bros. Anyway, so I went with it. Plus, because of the small chance of this happening, it shouldn't be relied on as a legitimate strategy. Though you would be very lucky if this activated when you used a powered up move. And as a little extra detail, the Crest of Flames could appear on Byleth's damage meter and or behind him like it does in the game when this activates. Now for the final part of the moveset, the Final Smash. Once again, I didn't want to be boring and just make Byleth's Final Smash another critical hit, since I still want to further push how he can be unique. Though here, I did also struggle to think of something for quite a while until I came up with an idea that made me feel really stupid in hindsight, since it was practically staring at me in the face. Byleth's Final Smash should be Gambit. Battalions and Gambits were another major feature introduced in Free Houses, with the offensive Gambits being designed for dealing large amounts of damage to enemies. So it absolutely makes the most sense to be a Final Smash. There are many different Gambits in Free Houses, but for this Final Smash idea, I chose to make it a combination of Assault Troop and Blaze. This would be a cinematic Final Smash, where for the initial hit, Byleth would perform a downward swing with the Sword of the Creator at full length. Any player who gets hit by this attack will be taken to a desolate battlefield where the Gambit will commence. A group of mercenaries will rush by, attacking the opponents to rack up damage and stagger them, before rolling in the explosives, which will then blow up right next to the opponents, sending them flying. With the moveset covered, I head over to the extra stuff that comes with a character. After Byleth wins a match, he'll need some victory poses to perform. His first pose would be his victory animation after defeating an enemy using a regular sword. But as female Byleth has her own animation for this, an interesting idea I thought of would be for this pose to differ depending on which gender you're playing as, with each having their respective animation. The second would be to have Byleth swing the elongated Sword of the Creator twice before retracting it and doing his pose from his official Free Houses artwork. Again, this can differ between genders, with female Byleth doing her artwork pose instead. Then for the last pose, which will be the same for both genders, it could be a recreation of the stance Byleth takes after cutting out of the Dark Void. Just cause I think Byleth staring down at the camera would look really cool with the graphics of all the losers clapping below. Also, we need the accompanying victory theme. As the Awakening character's victory theme is a segment of Eid Purpose, and Corrin's is a segment of Lost in Thoughts All Alone, Byleth's victory theme can be a segment of the Edge of Dawn. Then there's the potential alternate colors. Unfortunately, my photo editing software isn't very good when attempting to change colors. For instance, using the paint bucket tool will often create a big splodge of the color that even goes outside of the selected area, so you'll have to use your imagination a bit here, unless you want to see a poorly edited Byleth image. Though I will specify what parts of the model will change color, and to what color on screen. Like I said earlier, female Byleth will be an alternate costume, with each gender getting 3 alternate colors. My idea was to follow the same approach they did with Chrom and Lucina's colors, of having them reference other characters from their game. Male Byleth's first alternate color will give him blonde hair and wearing black and blue, based on Dimitri. Female Byleth's first alt can give her white hair and wearing red and black, referencing Edelgard. The second male alt gives him black hair and wearing black and yellow to reference Claude. The second female alt can give her bright green hair and wearing mostly white as a reference to Rhea. Then for the final male alt, he can get light brown hair and wear mostly orange. This color is based on Geralt, akin to how one of Ike's colors references Grail. And for female Byleth's last alt, she would have dark green hair and wear mostly dark blue, which is based on Sophis. I was honestly really disappointed with Joker's alternate colors not referencing the other party members aside from Akechi, so I hope they don't miss this kind of opportunity with Byleth. That's everything related to the character, but it isn't necessarily the only thing we could see if Byleth did get added. Now, we don't know if the second set of DLC will come with additional stages, or if they'll just be characters, but I would like to cover this as well because I couldn't help but think of ideas for this too. If we were to get a stage from Free Houses, then there's really only one place that it could be. Garreg Mach Monastery. The idea I had for the stage would be for it to work like Castle Siege, where it would transition and teleport the characters to different parts of the monastery, with each area having different platform layouts and a flat plane for the ground, as performed by a giant version of the warp circle appearing on the ground, flashing 3 times and lighting everything up as you're taken elsewhere. You could go to places like the fishing pond, the marketplace, the training grounds, the dorms, the cathedral, maybe even the Holy Tomb. Also, unlike Castle Siege, the area you start the match in could be random, as well as making it random what area you'll be warped to next. Additionally, they can have the students and church affiliates make cameos in the background, with them being present in the areas you would often find them around in the game, even having them react to various circumstances as they watch the fight. With this stage, there should also be music to play on it. We don't know if the DLC after the Fighters Pass will come with new music either, but Free Houses music is amazing and deserves to appear in Smash Bros. Regardless. Obviously, these will be added onto the Fire Emblem series music, meaning they can be played on the other Fire Emblem stages as well. Here are all the possible tracks I could think of. The Edge of Dawn is a definite since it's the game's main theme. I opted for it to appear as a new remix because the original is a very slow and somber track, so I think it would make more sense to give it a remix that is more fitting for a Smash Bros. Fight. However, I included the Seasons of Warfare version as well to have some form of the game's original track appear. The other tracks I chose were based on a combination of what would be most fitting for Smash Bros., which ones are the most popular, and my personal favorites, with new remixes being given to the tracks that I felt were a bit on the slower side. And that was all my ideas for the possibilities that could be seen if Byleth was to be added to Smash Bros. Hopefully this has convinced some of the Fire Emblem newcomer skeptics of how Byleth can be an interesting and unique character to warrant having a place in the Smash Bros roster. I think he's well deserving of being given that opportunity, though that does come from some personal bias because I love free houses and would be ecstatic to see it get some proper representation in Ultimate. I'm not counting spirits. So if that invitation somehow managed to make its way to Fodlan, I would be so excited. But with how crazy and third-party focused the DLC has been, I know it's not a guarantee. So we'll just have to wait and see.